To Sarah and Joy hold on a second, for moderating the chat for me this evening. I'm just going to start sharing my screen while I start yapping. So give me just a second here. I even practiced this today. All right, is my screen available for you to see?
That's perfect.
All right. So how I wanted to approach this for everyone was just to take some snippets, because I could legitimately talk your ear off for days about everything lupus related, life related. And so I wanted to narrow it down just a little bit for you. That would be, I guess, more concise to what the majority of lupus patients or even caregivers may wish to be aware of in their lupus journey, and whatever that might look at like. So as Sandra was saying, I was diagnosed with SLE in September of 2010. I do have SLE with organ involvement. I've had 3 heart attacks that were mild, thankfully. And I've had kidney issues that have since been resolved. I am a sole support parent of 5. I have 3 teenagers still currently residing at home and a 3-legged dog. And I mention this because I have dog cookies in case anyone makes any noise and he starts barking. I apologize in advance. So in part of my journey is I actually am doing a career change at the moment. I was a paralegal for a decade and then ran my own daycare business for another decade. And now I am studying what is meant for me and my passion, because this is my time. I've overcome a lot of health challenges, a lot of social challenges, a lot of parenting challenges, and this is for me. And by extension, my kids are watching. So I'm actually doing a Bachelor of Science in Earth Sciences right now. As Sandra said, I'm also a Lupus Ontario board member. I chair the advocacy committee. I contribute to the public awareness committee and social media aspects. An Ottawa Walk for Lupus coordinator with some other ladies, as well as a support group co-facilitator. So clearly I'm in Ottawa, and that's the beauty of these virtual Zooms is that anyone, anywhere can participate. So I hope that you feel my resounding thanks for Zooming in tonight. I know it's been a long pandemic and we're all kind of getting zoomed out, dependent on work and family and all that. So I really, really appreciate it. So essentially, I did not like the hand that I had been dealt with in life. And so what I did is I decided to change the game. And I'm going to tell you a little about some of the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. And I encourage you in the chat, if you have maybe tried something that I mentioned and it didn't kind of work, but you found another way, engagement. So please feel free to share in the chat so that others can have the opportunity to get even more information and more tips and little life hacks that can make their own journey with lupus all that much better. I did have one fun thing that I like to do too, though. Yes, I run a guinea pig rescue on top of everything else that I do. So this was for me, and I just thought I'd pop that in there because it's not all lupus 24/7 for me. I do like to have my passions, and my passion is animal rescue. So that's why I put that in there, because I love my piggies so much. So tonight, what I thought that we would address is, I know that there are some people attending that have been newly diagnosed, and I'd like to compare a few topics between what it was like when I was first diagnosed compared to, where I am over a decade later, and then those who are maybe multi-decades into their lupus journey may have some contributions, again, that they could put into the chat as well. I am addressing parenting. Not everyone is a parent, and I recognize that. So what I have done is also kind of made it applicable to, say, your friend set. Okay, so if I'm talking about children, kind of imagine, if you will, that you're relating to your friends or your family members. And that's how I kind of am going to approach that particular topic this evening. A couple of the common symptoms, I have come up with some life hacks with that, brain fog being one, the pain and fatigue being the second. It's not an unfamiliar territory for you all, so I really do encourage, again, put some ideas in the chat for your fellow patients or caregivers to, kind of broaden your horizons, so to speak, in that toolkit, because none of us had these skills in our toolkit before we got diagnosed on the majority, right? So the point is to work together to try to make it as easy as possible. And lastly, I am going to touch upon mental health. It's important that we're always talking about mental health. This is actually coming up to an anniversary where a good friend of mine did not make some healthy choices and is no longer with us. But what I will be doing, because I don't want to reiterate last month's webinar with Michelle, is I will direct you to how to find the recording of her last month's webinar as well. And lastly, I'm just going to highlight here how to say no. This is a lifelong journey over a decade, and I promise you, I am still learning how to say no. So shall we begin? Sandra actually alluded to this previously in her introduction. We are all in the same storm, but we are not all in the same boat. And this image really resonated with me because where I may have a moderate lupus involvement within my life, there are those of you who may have very, very minor symptoms. There are some of you who may be quite debilitated with the symptoms that you're enduring at the moment. And it is really important to me, and I cannot stress this enough, that we are all in this same storm. We're all going through the pandemic. We are all trying our best to persevere through all of these crazy times. It's a very difficult and challenging global environment that we're in right now. And I want to just first and foremost say that you matter. No matter where you are in your lupus journey, we are all in this together. And I'm hoping with the use of these webinars that we can all use these tips and tricks to kind of again, come together, not feel so alone, perhaps, especially, having come off of pandemic isolations or those kinds of situations where it can be, kind of highlight some of the more negatives, right? It can quickly spiral if we don't catch it right away. And that's what we're all here for. So I remember when I was first diagnosed, I had no idea what lupus was. Might be a very familiar journey for a lot of you here. There are some newly diagnosed patients. I'm already seeing some head nods. So yes, I have no idea what lupus is. I did not know where to find credible sources. And that's what I love about the Lupus Ontario website, is because we have educational support within our page. And I really do encourage you to look through those. It has everything from first diagnoses to tips and tricks for everything that you could possibly think of, because I looked through them. And that's how I became familiar with Lupus Ontario many, many, many years ago. A lot of times we are sometimes incapacitated with fear. And a lot of times what I've come to recognize is this fear is because I felt a loss of control. Lupus was something that I didn't understand how it worked. I knew it affected people differently, the disease of 1,000 faces. And I recognized that I wanted to have something solid that was across the board, that all lupus patients understood, so that when I went to my family and friends, I could just point A to point Z. That's not how lupus works, as a lot of you know. And then I got angry. I got angry, admittedly, and I was unsure why people were not standoffish. They would listen. But what would happen, I found, is that you kind of get the eye glaze and you kind of get the little gentle head nod. And then the topics change and you're kind of left wondering, well, what just happened? Did I not matter? Like, this is a big deal. This is a disease. And I kind to realize that I think why people are so less off-put by other conditions, so like cancer, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, etc., it's because they already have a familiarity with it. And if you were to stop a random person on the street and say, hey, do you know what lupus is? And you're not going to find a lot of people who do. That is why we're working so hard to put that word lupus on the lips and in the ears of all Ontarians, for myself, all Ottawans, across Canada and internationally as well, working with other organizations. It's so important because lupus is not a familiar vernacular. So it's kind of our responsibility to help and assist our family and friends, and that poses its own challenges, right? So when you look through where you were, for those of you who are veterans on this journey or road of lupus, over the years, I guarantee you found some new coping skills in order to either relate to family and friends, to your healthcare professionals. One critical thing that I would love to tell newly diagnosed patients is boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. It's something that is really challenging, especially when we're dealing interpersonally with people we love and respect and admire, whether it's friends, family, colleagues, etc., is we are allowed to set those boundaries for our own personal health and wellness. And the trick is, over the years, trying to read the person that we are, communicating with, and allow them to understand not just where we're coming from, but that our boundaries are firm. I was the queen of the loosey-goosey, if you will. And if people would push and say, oh, come on, you need to come out, I'd be, oh, okay, well, I'll sleep it off tomorrow. And as some of you veterans know, it's not a good thing, right? You could be put out for a day, 2 days, 3 days, depending on how overexerting you've let yourself participate in. But with those boundaries, of course, comes trying to lose that guilt of setting those boundaries, being firm, and whether it's a friend or a doctor, they have to be set and they have to be firm. You can kind of see a correlation to where I'm going to sweep into parenting later, because those boundaries will come into effect very clearly, very quickly. One of the things that I was able to do before this presentation, in fact, is I actually found a new family doctor. So I applied what we're going to talk about next with him, and I have to say, I nailed it. I slayed it. He was so receptive. And where we're going to go next is, I'll notice the head bobs when I see it. It's the pain scale. I can't stress enough with your healthcare professionals that they use this, as I'm sure you're aware, and it boggles my mind because it is so subjective and it's so full of opinion that nope, no thank you. It's just, this isn't a fun thing. So I made my own. And I really do encourage people, and the image itself, it's online, it's on the internet. You can search pain scale and it'll come up under the images. And I made my own because my 6 might not be your 6. We've all experienced various other, maybe emergencies in our lifetime. I don't know what a broken arm feels like, but I know what it feels like to have an ocular migraine, or I've had gallstones that made me want to impale myself, so by giving your healthcare professional something a lot more precise for you, I have found an incredible amount of kind of consolidation, and I wouldn't go so far as to say respect. I don't think that's quite the right word to use in this capacity, but immediately I already look like a proactive patient when I come in and I approached him and I said, Dr. Mansour, this is my pain scale. So when we're talking and you ask me, so what's your pain level at today? I can be like, well, today I'm at a 3. It's kind of weird, but it's okay. I could probably take a Tylenol if I needed one, but we're okay. I don't know what it's like to have no pain. I could probably ask you, is that what normal feels like? But I can also compare it to having kids. I mean, I've had 5. I have, in all fairness, twins. So that was my 2-for-1 special at the end. But the concept being is that my doctor now has an understanding that my 10 was gallstones and kidney stones. Someone else's 10 might be a migraine, or it might be a broken arm, or it might be, gosh, even worse than that, God forbid. But he has a clear understanding of where I'm going to be coming from when I say, okay, listen, I've had 5 kids. My pain tolerance is stupendously high because we're in pain so often or consecutively every day, right? He knows that if I say today my pain is an 8, whoa, okay, let me look in your, wow, okay, so that I need help, doctor. This is why I'm asking you. Okay. So I have never done well with these subjective pain scales. I've endured them at the ER when I had gallstones, kidney stones, and it's just not the same. I find that if you do give a large number, often in my own personal experience, it can be viewed as an exaggeration, perhaps. Marginalized communities often feel the similar kind of dispelling of their pain levels, and therefore the underlying condition that's bringing them in for help. I also talked to my doctor and I said, listen, I was with my previous doctor for 25 years. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a healthcare team. I'm not looking for you to just tell me what to do. I want to be a proactive patient. I want to tell you what I'm doing in order to try to alleviate what it is that I'm enduring within reason, so that when I ask you for help, you'll understand that I need help genuinely. Part of the experience with physicians is I had a purple happy face file sticker. I'm going to tell you about that. So my previous doctor, I asked her, I said, why is there a purple happy face sticker on my file? And she said, because you come prepared. I'm like, is that it? She said, well, you're nice. I'm like, okay, good. But I came prepared. And what I would do is, her rule was no more than 3 concerns. And then you need to make another appointment. So I had a piece of paper and I would go in with my 3 concerns, and on it would be what I have done to try to alleviate it. I would put what doesn't work, and I would put what does work. And I have done this with every specialist I've ever had: rheumatologist, kidney specialists, endocrinologists, cardiologists, urologists, everyone I have done this for, and they are appreciative. I used to be a patient who would go in and be so upset and overwhelmed. I would cry. I would be like, you don't understand. And I would launch into a whole story. They don't have time. It took me years to understand this. They say 3 concerns for a reason, and I must stress, they don't have time. So what I tried to do, and I have had good success with, is I've removed the emotion, but I've still been factual in how something affects my life. So for example, if you were to go to your doctor's office and say, my partner has to dress me 3 times a week because the pain levels are too high, I cannot function. Okay, you're expressing how difficult your situation is. However, you're addressing it in a way where you have to kind of think of, the doctors are looking at you like a form. What boxes can I tick off and what can I not tick off? Okay, I cannot walk upstairs. I need to use an elevator, or I need to use a mobile device for assistance. Those kinds of things I've had better reception to than, again, just blurting out my life story. They're not as engaged when I'm talking about my kids or my dog. I can't, brush him properly if my hands are too swollen or inflamed. And I have had a resounding success already, even with this new doctor that I had started seeing early in the summer. So I'm very pleased with this little tip. I do encourage that perhaps you make a pain chart that is applicable to you, because again, I find them so bothersome. They are so subjective. So I hope if something resonated from that, you can modify it for your own journey with your own healthcare teams as well. Moving on. All right, so parenting 5 kids while having lupus is unbelievably challenging. When I was diagnosed, that's what this picture is here. This is 4 of my 5, obviously. I had a 15-year-old, 11-year-old, 5-year-old, and my youngest were 3-year-olds at the time, twin boys. So as you can imagine, not only is 5 kids kind of crazy, in my defense, 2 for 1 special was not on my agenda for that. It was a different variance of ages. So what I endured was having to wear a different mask for each child. And I hope you can resonate with that, just in terms of how you address a coworker is different than how you address a friend, is how you different than how you would address your own parents or your own children. So I found I was having to wear a lot of different masks, and I did not know how to adequately inform them of what lupus was, or what I could be in for, or, again, I was still learning what is this disease and how is it going to affect me as a person, as a mother. A lot of tips that I have read over many years, especially at the beginning, and this is where the internet comes in handy a lot, because as my children grow, they get a different picture of what I'm going through, geared towards their ages now. Kind of, I am lucky in that I get to cheat a bit. I get to recycle some of my information, because again, my oldest son was 15, and now my twins are 14 years old. So I have been able to recycle some of that information as my younger children got older as well. There are astoundingly a lot of books out there written, and this is where I'm going to kind of cross-relate parenting with those of you who aren't parents, that perhaps you could use this for your friends and family as well. There are books that will allow you to see other patients' experience. These books that I'm referring to specifically are authors who have written about their own lupus journey. Branch out, look for authors who have written about RA or other autoimmune conditions. And the reason why I say that is because you don't have to read it like a novel. You can pick out chapters. And now that the libraries are becoming a little bit more accessible, it might be something, and Kindle and online files and such. Why I'm suggesting that, it seems obvious, but what I found was I would read a lot and think, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why you would do that. But if you look deeper than that, it's why. So how can you make this work for you, right? So again, what I endured with the ages of my children, especially as a parent, individuals that are writing these books on lupus or how to care for someone with a chronic condition, that's also an option. I did have to send book links to my parents because they weren't sure why I was making such a big deal out of it. However, once they had links to various different authors who are caring for patients with lupus, opinions changed quite a bit because it gave them tips and tricks. Or if they attempted to support me in a way that wasn't comfortable for me, I could kind of respond with, I know that was coming from a place of love and great intentions. Perhaps next time we could try doing this instead. So books, although, you know, I recommend them highly, but it is with that caveat that you're going to have to use them as a foundation on which you're going to formulate your own opinions, your own ideas, your own skills and tricks. Okay, but it is a great way to start that foundation in order to build those skill sets that you'll need as a lupus patient or as a caregiver for a lupus patient or as a parent, and tying that all together. Age appropriate language. Oh my goodness. So you can imagine I have toddlers. I have a 5-year-old full of sass and spunk, and all they want to do is do all the things. They want to go everywhere. They want to get into everything. And I thought, I am going to lose my damn mind. Okay, where do I start from here? Because there are days where my legs were just not working, or other days the fog was just too overwhelming. So one of the things that I had done for myself, and this is where I would suggest for people who aren't parents, perhaps for your friends and family, perhaps your partners as well, is I actually sat down and I made a list of alternative ideas. So if they were to come to me, for example, and say, you know, I want to go to the park. Oh, my legs aren't working for the park. They don't understand that, and that's okay, right? I have a jar full of stuff we can do here, right? So they still feel empowered to make those choices, that they are going to be doing something fun, that they're going to be doing something that they still have chosen, but that works within the limits of my own condition. I have also a big clue was I was asked so often, well, get your kids to do it. It didn't resonate very well with me in the beginning because I thought, gosh darn it, they're not my caregivers. I don't want my kids to be caregivers, which is true. However, what I was not looking towards was the ability for them to just do things like wash their hands, right? Keep mommy safe, you know, we don't want to have colds in the house, wash your hands, those kinds of things. So those are just a couple of tips and tricks from the parenting kind of skill set that I've had to sort of modify, not just for my own kids, but I have applied it to friends who maybe want to go out. Hey, maybe we'll have a movie night instead. And they're really agreeable, because one thing that I'm always, whether it's my kids, my friends, my family, is I always validate that, listen, I know this is going to sound really disappointing. And I understand that you went through a lot of effort to plan a trip to the park, a restaurant, pre-COVID, wherever. And I just wanted to let you know that that's okay, but it's not going to be on my schedule for today. Could we do this instead? I put brain fog in air quotes because it's real. It's real, but I really wish people in the medical community would address it to their patients as what it is, and that's cognitive dysfunction. It is debilitating at some points, and I'll be honest, I had questioned my life choices when I went back to university. It is really difficult to manage there, and I know most of you know all of these. Especially, I highlighted the medication. The medication for lupus patients can be our own worst enemy in one way and a godsend in others. We know that it can be made worse during periods of flares. It's just the colloquialism that we're using for these actual medical conditions, I find really doesn't validate a disease that's already invisible, right? So what I have done is, and see, my brain is having a little bit of things because I'm trying to get ahead of myself too. So that's actually an example of what I thought was going to happen, and it happened right on cue, of course. So it is coupled with, brain fog is coupled with other conditions as well that lupus patients endure. I have fibromyalgia as well. So my brain cells, they're not happy with anything ever. So I had to come up with a lot of coping skills very, very quickly. I have 3 calendars on the go. They're all paper. I have 2 electronic calendars. Why? Isn't that confusing? Well, yes, it is. But depending where I am and what I have access to, I need to write it down somewhere. Okay, I have tried so many calendar apps. I have a paper one that I really like. It's broken down to times. It is crucial that we find a method that works for you, for those that are new, especially to a lupus diagnosis. More so, notebooks. I have a notebook in my purse. I have one on my bedside table. I have one in the car. I have one on the coffee table. I have one in the kitchen, and I could go on. That's how many little notebooks I have from the dollar store. Reason being is because if someone has interjected, for example, my children, Mom, my sheets don't fit my bed. I don't understand. I need new sheets. I am not going to remember it. Perhaps I will, but I go on the side of caution. I write everything down. And when I have my coffee in the morning, that's when I look through my notebooks as I'm going from room to room. Oh, right, I need to start looking at back to school supplies. Yes. Okay, I need to pick up more guinea pig pellets. They're obvious things, but it is crucial that you're making these lists, these, random thoughts somewhere written down on your tablets, on your phones, wherever. It is critical because once we're into these kinds of habits, and it takes, I think it said 3 weeks for a habit to become habitual, we're in a much better capacity to be able to function around them, around the things that we have to do. And by that as well, correlated with that is being able to prioritize as well. With brain fog, cognitive dysfunction, what matters? I have had to learn to let that go. I have had to learn to let so much go. I want to do everything, and I want to do it right the first time. This is my type of personality, and it doesn't mesh with lupus a lot of the time. So we need to find these types of coping tricks that will allow us to keep those neurons firing. It's big chemical networks in our brain. They're electrical impulses. We need to actually keep training them to keep working. Our medications don't often allow for that either, right? I don't do meditation. I cannot. If someone said just shush your mind, I'm like, I have 5 kids. Are you kidding me right now? I can't do it. My definition of meditation had to change. My meditation is when I go for a walk by myself, no dogs, no guinea pigs, no kids, no family, no friends, by myself. This is my meditation. So don't be afraid to redefine what coping skills or definitions of because meditation is one of those things I wish I was blessed with being able to do. I am not one of those people, and for so long I thought there was something wrong with me, that there was actually extra something wrong with my brain, and that's not true. So if you can redefine how you approach meditation, that changes the game as well. Brain games, always great. I am a big fan of Sudoku and wordscapes. I'm just saying. I don't get paid or reimbursed for anything, but I'm just saying wordscapes, man, that keeps the neurons firing as well. Also makes me very angry sometimes, but we won't talk about that part. All right, moving on, pain and fatigue. So you're all very, very aware. The levels of pain, how it fluctuates, the correlation with fatigue. One of the most important understandings I have come to in my entirety of my life, my lupus journey, is reducing inflammation. And it just sounds so obvious, right? We are full of inflammation so often, especially those of us with secondary conditions as well, like fibromyalgia, maybe a rheumatic arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, osteoarthritis, all of those things. What I didn't correlate with was my blood sugar. I am type 2 diabetic. I am not on any medication currently. I was. When I was pregnant with my twins, I was injecting insulin 4 times a day, and I had a special one overnight. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because the city of Ottawa here, and perhaps where you live, they may have some as well. They have community information sessions for diabetics. Changed my game. It really did. The reason being is because I had gestational diabetes. Everyone told me it'll go away. It did after my daughter. It did not after the twins. So I had to actually make myself go learn about diabetes and understand the correlation between blood sugar levels and levels of inflammation. And I thought I would just put that out there for you to discuss with your healthcare professionals, because it is diabetes, it changes the shape of your red blood cells. Okay, so when your blood glucose is too high, they get all like wonky. That leads to inflammation systemically. So systemic inflammation, also with lupus, something to keep an eye on. And I do suggest that your healthcare professionals are monitoring your A1C and your blood glucose levels. Moving, this is something that my rheumatologist had told me with the fibromyalgia. You need to keep moving. I'm like, but moving hurts. I don't wanna. And he's like, but you gotta. I'm like, you know what? I can be a little stubborn too. Don't wanna. But if we have a heart-to-heart with ourselves, we need to keep moving. Again, we're trying to prevent this systemic inflammation that is making everything worse. Mental health, the brain fog, as I'm still going through. I'm so sorry. No matter how small, it is something is better than nothing. It goes back to that age-old mantra. Something is better than nothing. So on days where I'm like, I'm a little grouchy, not gonna lie, shouldn't have any more coffee, bad for the blood glucose, I'm just gonna do a few flights of stairs. I can do that. Days that my legs aren't working, I'll take resistance bands and I'll sit there and do some arm work. The screen's not so big, sorry. And do some arm work, okay? I'm still moving. You'll still be moving, and it's okay, okay? When I looked up, and because I just wanted to see online, if you look up exercise and lupus, you'll, go swimming, go biking, go hiking, go kayaking, go And that's wonderful. I can't always do that. But when someone is newly diagnosed, especially, and you see this, you're like, I'll be glad to get out of bed in the morning. Are you kidding me? Go mountain biking? So I needed somebody to tell me way back then, Brynn, chill out. It's okay. Just walk around your condo neighborhood. You're golden. Okay. Any little bit of movement helps. And I did want to bring up, as was on Sandra's initial events program, tomorrow night, Emma's dance and movement. So she does like a ballet session, like no impact, just to get moving. I encourage you to check it out, because even for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, if you're more debilitated with lupus than say other people, it still matters. Okay, I cannot stress that enough. It still matters. We're still reducing blood glucose levels. We're still helping with the inflammation. Very, very, very important. And I bring up the stairs because stairs, I admit, like my kids have seen me scoot down on my butt down the stairs so many times in tears because my legs are not working. So when my legs are working, but my brain's a little fuzzy, I do the stairs. I don't go on a bike because the brain on a bike is not going to work, right? So every little bit helps. And I just wanted to give that empowerment to those of you who might be new with it. It matters. Every little bit matters. And it can obviously have an impact on your mental health, right? And this is where it gets real. So just, I call brain trolls boggarts. I'm not sure if any of you have watched the Harry Potter movies. I have kids, so clearly we've read the books, watched the movies. I have bad brain trolls. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be very, very open. I have bad brain trolls on occasion, and it's really, really hard to keep on keeping on. That being said, I am not an all rainbows all the time person, nor am I wine 1-1. Okay, critical. I keep my post balanced for this reason, because I want my friends and family, when they see me posting, whoa, okay, she's having a bad day. All right. And then I balance it with, you know what, grumpy mood or whatever, but I saw the most beautiful bird on my back fence. What this shows is the ability and desire and capability to acknowledge my emotions when they are not so nice, sit with them. They're valid. I do not like the toxic positivity. We need to be careful with that sometimes, because I know that spun me right out of control at some point as well. It's about the balance. You are valid in your feelings. It's determining how long is comfortable enough to validate those feelings before we move on and process and use our coping skills in order to move forward. Because boy, have I had to own my stuff over the years. I've had to own it. I am not good at asking for help. And I know there are people on here that are just like, she does not ask for help very well. And I love my friends dearly. It is so challenging. They know this of me. And by admitting it, when I'm able to ask, I know that they are more than welcome to say no, they're not able to, or they're not in the right headspace to listen. So I have had to look for resources. You have to do the work, and it's hard. It is hard. Lupus is hard, and it is not fair, and that is valid as well. But we must make that effort to, again, look for the resources that we could that could augment our journeys. We can ask others to look for resources for us. I've learned this one very well, in that people will say, well, what do you need? Oh, no, I don't know. I don't know what I need. And I'll just trip over my words. Well, do you mind, if you have a few minutes, looking this up, exercise for lupus? Do you have a few minutes to look up diet and nutrition? And I guarantee you, even things like that can help a lot, because during COVID, I couldn't have anybody in my house to help me clean. Also don't want anybody in my house to clean it. I want it to be clean, right? So we have these cyclical mental health debates within ourselves. I did have COVID. Myself and my daughter tested positive for COVID last October, and I will get a little weepy. It was very difficult. It was the darkest hours I have ever had in my entire lupus journey. I tell you this because I made the effort to find the help that I needed, to make sure that everything was safe. And I was safe, but my mind was not well. And there were the 2 days that were the worst days. I thought, you know what? No, thank you. I fight every day. I fight every day since this damn diagnosis, and I just don't want to fight anymore. I'm tired. I can't breathe, and I just don't want to anymore. And I had an opportunity. My university offers counseling, and I slammed that send button so fast because I recognized I need help. I need someone to help me. And when I logged in for that first counseling session, the counselor, he just looked at me through Zoom, of course, and said, I am so proud of you for reaching out. That's it. That's what I needed. I needed someone to say, you know what? You did good. You did something good. And on my end of things, what it did is it gave me that control that fear and sadness and anger can often wrap around, right? So there are resources in your areas. The Ottawa Distress Center, you don't even have to talk on the phone. You can text, you can do chats on their website. There are options for you to just say, I hate everything. And someone's going to say that you matter because you do. I cannot stress that enough. And I am so glad that I took those few minutes to just reach out. And I really, really want you to reach out. And you can reach out to me. You can reach out to the resources that are available in your community. You can join our support groups. It's just critical to know that you're not alone in this. We are going to get through this. And that's where you need to say no to certain things. If you're going to overwhelm yourself and overburden yourself, you're not doing yourself any favors. Other people may benefit from it, but if you're not that full glass, we're not talking glass half empty, glass half full. No, baby, you need to be full. You need to have all your tools, all your skills in one cup, brimming, so that you can take care of yourself before you take care of others. And I really, really hope that that resonates, just even with someone. I found the key to my life. Dun, dun, dun. The key is choice. I make so many choices each and every day to craft this life. Lupus, that's not how I want to be remembered. Oh, she had lupus. Oh, that Brynn chick? Yeah, no, she had lupus. No. I want to be remembered for having a life despite having lupus. And that's why I'm putting myself out there, because it has taken me so long to practice these words and even longer to believe them. I matter. And you know what? So do you. And I really, really, at the end of the day, it is very important as we're going through this journey that can be mild, moderate, debilitating, that you matter. And every small little bit of effort, it does make a difference. So if you got up and attended the Zoom webinar tonight, I am so thankful. I am so proud. I am so happy. And then tomorrow, maybe you'll go for a walk, or maybe you have a mountain bike. Okay? Every day we can do something that is more than nothing. And I wanted to thank you all for listening to a little bit of my life journey and taking time out of your own to have a little bit of a listen in. So Thank you so much. So much.
Oh, well, thank you, Brynn, for being so frank, so real with your discussion tonight. I think we can all appreciate that, and we all share and and can relate to what you had to say. So now the chat is open. I know a number of people have been posting some comments, so thanks for interacting, and we will do specific question now. Sarah and Joy will be monitoring the chat. We will go back, I guess, a bit, Sarah and Joy, and just to see if there was any specific questions for Brynn. I mean, along with all the commentary. So thank you, everyone, for your active involvement in this discussion. And thank you for sharing as well your experiences. I know a number of people have shared their experiences and just things that they do, whether it's a note taking or whether it's just, certain kind of Tai Chi in their chair, etc. So thank you for all that feedback. So now I will ask Sarah and Joy to just review the chat and see if there's anything directly directed at Brynn that you could talk that she can maybe answer or reflect on for those questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so there are a lot of comments. I don't know if we can read out all the comments, but going back, I think the first question was from Stephanie a while back. I'm undecided on whether or not I should get the vaccine. What has your rheumatologist advised everyone to do? And then some people did chime in. I was one of them. I said that it's very patient dependent, depending on your specific situation. Talk to your rheumatologist. That seemed to be kind of, but I don't know if Brynn wants to also add to that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joy. The reason why I didn't address the vaccines specifically is because it is so patient-centric. Again, your whole life and health history is taken into consideration with rheumatologists. I am double vaccinated. I am not currently on any medications where I could have had any possible contraindications. That being said, my rheumatologist, to me personally, was that it was okay for me to get it. So I know people are fearful. I do. I know that people are fearful. Please have that conversation because, and I'm getting a little weepy, I don't want to see any of you. I don't want to see any of you have COVID because it was horrendous. And I cannot imagine if it had gone even worse because I thought COVID was going to be a death sentence. So having to tell my kids that I tested positive and have them break down because they thought it meant I was dying. Please have that conversation. Okay, please have that conversation with your healthcare teams because I don't want to see anyone go through that pain, okay?
I also mentioned we had Dr. Cilius who did an excellent presentation on SLE and COVID, and he did speak in depth about the vaccine to bring some clarity to that. So along with speaking to your own personal physician, Stephanie, again, like I did put in the chat, you might want to revisit that webinar because there was some interesting information in that webinar, and it did help, I think, a number of people who attended that webinar to make that decision as far as the vaccine went. So please do that. Like Brynn said, your health is your priority, so do review that video and do talk to your personal physician regarding that. Okay, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Brynn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you,
okay.
Sarah.
Great, thanks. Next in the chats, I believe that your tip on note-taking resonated with some of our participants here. We have Kathy mentioning calendars, using paper calendars, and Jill mentioned just writing things over and over helps her remember. And then we have a question here. What is the best way to handle peripheral neuropathy at times comes with SLE, sorry.
That is a conversation I absolutely can address. My experience with it is, and this is a whole other topic, so please understand that this is again, one of those healthcare professional conversations. I have prescription CBD. THC, it is the part of the cannabinoids that do affect the brain, like the loopy, but they are able to give you precise doses. The only reason why I'm mentioning this is because neuropathy occurs in a different part of the brain than CBD effects. So CBD is great for inflammation and pain. The THC in whatever quantity would be prescribed for you, please. It works in a different area of the brain, and that actually helps the neuropathy from everything from peripheral diabetic neuropathy, fibromyalgia, because it is in that different part of the brain. So that is my personal experience with it. But that, again, as you can imagine, would be a conversation to have with a professional who knows how to dose properly.
Okay, great, thank you. Heather, from my understanding, oh, sorry, Joy, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
We have a question here. From my understanding, cognitive dysfunction could be caused by disease activity, medications, diet, etc. Brain fog is a symptom, or is it neuro SLE?
That one is a little bit harder to answer because there's other tests that healthcare professionals can do. I've seen a neurologist simply because I got electrocuted while camping, a whole other story, but there are imaging and that would show whether there was some kind of underlying, condition, whether one causes one, the dysfunction or the dysfunction is flaring. I have found so many differing opinions on that. I don't think that I could personally advocate for one position over the other at this point. I'm still not convinced one way or the other yet. I'm still working on it.
Okay, great. And we have a follow-up to that. I guess a comment that says that managing temperature, environment, in the environment, clothing, movement, exercise, managing blood sugar, figuring out which medications work when it's worse, and lowering dose helps to adjust the neuropathy flare-ups. Okay, and then just talking about the exercise portion that you were mentioning and keeping ourselves healthy. Some people suggested that they do Tai Chi and ballroom dancing.
Oh, fun. Yes. Yeah. That's
and
awesome. I'm so glad you're moving. Yes. And Tai Chi, I could see that just being nice and fluid. I'm going to look up some videos on that. Thank you for sharing.
That's great. And thank you for mentioning our ballet class that we have coming up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I just put a link for the registration. Unfortunately, our ballet instructor doesn't have very good internet where she is, and will be pre-recording it. So if you do register, that pre-recording will be sent to you. And Brynn, there's a comment in here thanking you so much for your strength and sharing with us and being honest and open. And we are so blessed that you are here today. You are meant for so much more than what cards you've been dealt. And we are so thankful for you being here and sharing with us today.
Comments like that make it very validating to be vulnerable, to show that vulnerability, to show that openness. And it's something where I believe in it. I wish I had found someone earlier in my own journey. And I promised myself that if I could help just one person anywhere, somewhere, anywhere, that makes it worth it, because it is hard to be that vulnerable. but I didn't come all this way to just bow out now, right? So if it can help someone else keep on keeping on, then
Yeah.
I really want to try. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's so much strength in vulnerability.
Okay, just before Joy, I'm not sure if there's any other questions. Just on that note, Brynn, just want to bring up again our support groups. We do have, again, from our young adults right through, and those are every month. That is one of the purpose our support groups serve. It's a safe environment where you can come and discuss your lupus journey. I know sometimes it's hard for others to understand what you're going through, but at our support group, it is a safe environment where you can discuss your lupus journey, learn from those of us who are already walk in that journey, and as well. And because they're online, you can join from anywhere. I noticed someone put in that their daughter is in New Zealand. The young adults group, you just have to go to Lupus Ontario /support, and you can join those support groups from anywhere you are at any time. And you could join any of the groups. You don't, if you know, if it's more convenient to join the Durham group or the Ottawa group or the provincial group, as opposed to the young adults, we all welcome you. So please look at Lupus Ontario /support for those support group meetings that are available to help you in your lupus journey. Okay, Joy, is there anything else? I'm not sure. I know it is 8 o'clock. Sorry about that, Joy. Sorry. I know it is 8 o'clock. If you know, I know Brynn is willing to stay on and answer a few more questions. So if you do have to leave, we do appreciate you being with us tonight. Thank you for supporting and coming out to support our presenters and our guest speakers, because they are taking their time to volunteer. And this is one way of us showing their support. So thank you. We had a great group tonight. So if you would like to stick around, Brynn will answer a few more questions and I'll pass it back to Joy. Sorry, Joy.
No problem. Yeah, so Patricia asked, are you vaccinated at this time? I believe that was a question for Brynn. Jeremy added to that. Patricia, this was in October 2020, so prior to the vaccine rollout. So I believe this question was posed, Brynn, while you were talking about your experience with COVID.
Oh, with the COVID, yeah. So definitely, I had to wait my turn. I'm a hybrid. I'm an AZ Moderna girl, and I took the first one available to me. So I was my 2 weeks post, fully both doses at the end of July, or mid-July, sorry.
Great. And then we have another just sort of comment about just showing appreciation. Brynn, Jillian says, I can't even tell you how much I look up to you, Brynn. You are absolutely amazing. Heart. Yeah.
I love you, Jillian.
Yeah. And Monique piped in. She said, I've had lupus since being a teenager, but only found out in 2009 when my mom died. I'm still suffering, but get out of bed every morning and force myself to move. So I think this was in response to the conversation about moving, just kind of in any way that you can. And then I'll do one more comment before I pass it over to Sarah. So Patricia, my daughter has had lupus for 5 years. She is currently in New Zealand. I'm wanting to know if other women with lupus have had their Pfizer and if they had to get off their immunosuppressant drugs. I don't know, Brynn, if you wanted to comment on
I think Jeremy had put on a link later to a presentation that a doctor done about, maybe Dr. Stelios's one would be beneficial. I'm not on any medication, so I did not have to have any particular or specific brand. So that was not a concern within my own personal experience.
And some people do have to, if they are on certain medication, they have to stop taking it for a period of time in order to get the vaccine. So that might affect, again, that is something that your physician would be able to advise you about accordingly, depending on your own health situation and what medications
For which
you're on.
medications? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And I see that there are some thank yous in the chat for you. as well for your
Thank
presentation.
you for listening. I know everyone's so zoomed out. It means so much. Gotta hang out. It's great.
Well, you were so engaging.
Oh, good. Except for the brain fog. We're great. We're golden.
That's okay. We get it. We get it.
Exactly.
That's why you had your notes.
That's why I have my notes. Right here.
And we have some members sharing their experience with the vaccine. So if you'd like to look through there, you can hear others' personal sharing. And then we have a question, Brynn, you mentioned problems with your legs and not being able to walk. Is this from weakness? I'm newly diagnosed and this is one of my symptoms, but I haven't been sure if it was DT lupus.
From what my rheumatologist said, that this, for me, my legs are lupus related as opposed to fibromyalgia related. And I had been in a period of remission, or what we call quiescence, for about 17 months, several years ago. So I know the difference now, thankfully. And no, for me, this is a lupus issue. It's my joints, it's my muscles, it's just like a fatigue in my legs. They just don't seem to want to work. And it's not, there's no sudden trigger for it. There's no, I didn't go ride a mountain bike. There's no rhyme or reason. I can't predict it. Sometimes I can feel them starting to get heavy. For me, it is part of my lupus. So it could be, but definitely something to mention, of course. Yeah, sliding down stairs on your butt. It's not cool. Not cool. My kids laugh. In love. But yeah, no, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I cry going up the stairs just to try to get up the stairs because I want to go up the stairs and my legs are saying no thank you. And it's hard. It's embarrassing too. If I'm honest, I feel embarrassed. But please don't, because it's not you as a person, right? Don't let it dictate that.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's something that you kind of come to know with your body over time when this might be coming on, so you can kind of prepare for what your day is going to be like. We have another question. Did childbirth bring out your lupus? I was diagnosed after my first 2 years ago, and just had a major flare after my second 9 months ago.
For me, they don't believe that my pregnancies induced my lupus. I participated in a doctoral thesis, which was or a master's thesis inquiring as to whether traumatic events, PTSD, like level clinically diagnosed PTSD, whether these traumatic events could have had a function. And the reason why they don't think it was my pregnancies specifically was because I'd had 2 children prior to onset, even when they calculated back, because they figured I'd had it for about 8 years, but I'd already had children by then. So for me, it wasn't an onset due to pregnancy. That being said, I have anecdotally heard from other women that they were diagnosed post childbirth. I'm sure there must be, if you're going to look things up, may I recommend using Google Scholar instead of just your standard Google bar. You will be presented with more scientific articles. However, having been in a science program now, fast fact, the abstract is it's easier, scientific still, but it's much easier to understand than an entire scientific paper. Please don't do that. You'll brain cells will jump off the cliff. So if you read the abstracts of it, I'm sure if you put in childbirth and lupus or pregnancy and lupus in Google Scholar, that you'll have probably a few hits on there, but that's what I would recommend as well. And yes, for the elephant in the room, I don't have hair. And yes, it is directly lupus related. I know we're all politically correct. We don't want to comment on someone's appearance, but I actually don't have hair. I have hair-ish, but I keep it shorn. In 2014, I did lose two-thirds of my scalp from a secondary discoid lupus flare-up. And it was just easier at that time to buzz it off, to have the steroid medication to put on. Unfortunately, I still do suffer from a lot of the lesions. They're cyclical as well, like a flare would be. So while I could, in theory, grow it out because it's nothing like it was before in 2014, I kind of think it looks pretty badass, and I kind of like it now. But I do still struggle. I know hair loss is a huge issue for a lot of women specifically, sometimes men as well. You know, are there remedies or that? There's supplements in that, but honestly, you'd have to take them for so long. You know, it's something, I mean, bring up with your healthcare provider. But yeah, that is why it's because of lupus that I don't have hair. So just in case you're wondering.
Well, I wasn't wondering because you're rocking the look.
Thank
And
you.
you look fabulous. So, but thank you for sharing that. 'Cause I'm sure, you know, a lot of us do suffer with some sort of hair loss on our journey, whether it be with lupus or medication related.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can rock it and feel good about it.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Okay, so moving on in the chat, Kathy has posted any adverse vaccine reactions are reportable, and there is a link that she put in there for anyone. And then our next question, can you share with us again your list of how you show up for doctor's appointments? I think for each concern, you have what works, what doesn't work, and personal pain scale. Is there anything that I'm missing?
I think that was it, Madeline. It was because on my notes, my doctor was able to do 3 concerns. So I would have, you know, my concern is my skin. I've tried, you know, hydrocortisone off the pharmacy counter. I, you know, have tried Epsom salt soaks. This worked, this didn't work. I think you've actually put all of them. You have what works, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to show that we have been a proactive patient, that this is what I've tried it for this long. I don't think I mentioned that part before, but I will put in a timeline. Like, okay, it started 6 weeks ago. I've tried this for 4.5 weeks straight. You know, this kind of helps. This doesn't quite help. What else can I do? So yeah, I think you've addressed those. I don't think, other than maybe adding the time that I had not mentioned, that was it. And the pain scale, that has been divine. That I think has been, if I had to say the secret of everything, it was that darn pain scale, because it's so subjective.
Is there any more questions? So we could wrap it up. Joy, can you see if there's anything else? A specific question maybe,
okay.
though,
Yes.
as opposed to a comment, just so we
Okay.
just make
Yeah.
sure we don't miss any of the questions. Thanks.
Okay, so Stephanie has asked, does anyone sweat a lot? Even when it's cold, I will be sweating buckets. Not sure if it's a lupus thing or medication side effects.
I know depending what medications I'm on, but I'm also in perimenopause. So is it lupus? Is it the perimenopause? Who knows, right? Part of the journey. So for myself, it could be either or, but for myself, I'm leaning towards myself, it's perimenopause.
Yeah, sometimes it could definitely be the medication as well. You know, the night sweats and stuff like that is quite common based on some of the medications that you are taking. And those are ongoing as well. I mean, they can hot, cold, whatever, you can still get those, Stephanie, as well.
Yeah, Kathy said, I sweat when blood sugar is changing, when prednisone dose changes, or when when pulse or blood pressure are unstable. So that's, see if there are any other questions. Lots of thank yous. Sarah, do you see any?
Oh, yeah, Gemma had mentioned about the student groups. My university has the Paul Menton Center, which is an accessibility center for students with disabilities or impairments, that kind of thing. And that's where I'll, now that I have my doctor again, we'll get some support as well to help with time and anything really. So thank you, Gemma.
Okay.
And I see Stephanie has a question around seizures.
Has anyone else experienced seizure? No, I cannot say I've had seizure. Stephanie, I would definitely talk to someone.
Yeah, those are sort of the neurology, sort of the lupus.
Neurology, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely something you want to, well, I'm sure you would have if it's been going on for a while, discuss with your doctor, but that is part of, unfortunately, one of the symptoms of lupus as well.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions, but Sarah, if I missed anything.
Oh, I don't see any more questions as well. Just lots of thank yous, that you're a badass, love your hairstyle. I'm sorry if I was not allowed to say that, but it was there.
I had to restrain myself during my presentation. I'm just going to put it out there. I get a sticker for that, okay? You folks have been awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it.
And I would like to thank you again, Brynn. Excellent presentation. Again, all our presentations are posted within 24 to 48 hours, both the recording and the PDF copy of the presentations. So we will get that posted. Jeremy, thanks again for always getting that so quickly online. So if anyone needs to review this or any of our past webinars, they are available online. Again, a reminder, this weekend, Lupus Walk. If you haven't register and walk for lupus. Funds raised do support research and support groups and other things for the lupus organization. So I hope, I mean, again, it is a virtual walk, so you can do absolutely anything. I'm not 100% sure what the weather is like, but you know, now we are getting outside as well. I know some friends and I are going to go for a walk. And also, when you do walk this weekend, we want you to share. I see Sahara is here. We want you to share those pictures on social media. Okay, guys? So I'm looking forward to seeing lots and lots of pictures this weekend on social media from your walk. Again, Brynn, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Joy, for your support tonight, as well as Jeremy. I hope if you have any other questions, please feel free. My gosh, I can't talk anymore. Please feel free to send us an email at support@lupusontario.org. Sarah, could you just drop that in the chat for me? And someone will usually respond to any questions that come into that email within 24 to 48 hours. Again, support@lupusontario.org. Thank you so much. Love the interaction tonight, guys. Hope you all have a great night. Hope to see you all walking, yoga, and cooking, whatever you're doing this weekend for the Walk for Lupus.
And additionally, if you are walking, please listen to our Lupus Ontario podcast, which is launched now as well. So you can hear about the walk, why we walk. Sandra and Laura, if you're in the Durham area, were interviewed, so you can hear their interview. And please follow us, share with your friends. This is a new and exciting journey for us to reach as many people and make it, as Brynn said, part of our vernacular.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that, Sarah. I did mean to mention the podcast and I did forget. So this is why we're such a great team, right? Because we're one forgets, someone else picks up. So thank you for that. Yeah, that's a great thing that our young adults, we're going to give pros out to the young adults, have came up with this great idea of a podcast. And yes, please do. The link is available also online at lupusontario.org. You can access it from there or from Spotify or any of the other Apple Play, whatever you listen to your podcasts on.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for your patience and thanks for hanging around for all the questions. And thank you, Brynn, for sticking around. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.